Greetings. Welcome everyone to our first Urban Homeworks panel of the new year. It is official. It is 2023. It, for some of us, still feels like 2022, but we are working through that. I want to thank you all for joining us for your lunch hour today. It's great to have you here, and we're looking forward very much to having this discussion on civic engagement, particularly as we head into a very busy legislative session, a prime opportunity of a trifecta of a single party, and folks are predicting that a lot will get done this session. So with that, we'll get started. As many of you know, here at Urban Homeworks, we acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that was stolen by European colonizers from the Dakota peoples, indigenous to Minnesota. And for this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We also acknowledge that we live our lives and do our work on land that was cultivated and developed by bodies that European colonizers stole from West African countries through the transatlantic slave trade. And in order for this theft to occur, sadistic acts of genocide, rape, and forced assimilation were employed. We acknowledge what was taken from our collective human ancestors, and as we do so, we commit to work and fight for the liberation for the descendants of those enslaved through American chattel slavery and the sovereignty of all Native peoples. Which actually is a perfect acknowledgement for this conversation. This conversation is about how we do that, how we do this work, and how we fight to success. For those of you that are new to Urban Homeworks, we are a 27-year-old faith-rooted social justice organization that was founded in 1995. Started off as a volunteer effort, and we have now grown to have 136 units of affordable rental housing in North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, and Frogtown in St. Paul. We also are an affordable housing developer, and we have developed over 100 homes for affordable sale to families making 80% of the area median income. And at the core of our work at the center is community engagement, community development, partnership, and advocacy. And I am AsaleSol Young, the executive director here at Urban Homeworks. And I want to welcome our wonderful panelists to the conversation on civic engagement. We have quite the group gathered for you all today. And I would love for you all to just introduce yourselves to our audience. We'll just start with names, preferred pronouns, and the organization that you represent, and then we'll get into our conversation. So I'm going to kick it off first to you, Yolanda.
Thank you so much. I'm Yolanda Roth. I'm here representing Take Action Minnesota, and any pronoun is great. Thank you.
Love that. Alvin.
Hi all, I'm Alvin Akibar. I direct the Center for Social Justice at Urban League Twin Cities, and I primarily use he, him, but I also respond to any pronouns used respectfully towards me.
Beautiful. Thank you. Nicole.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nicole Donoso. I'm the Policy and Democracy Organizer at Voices for Racial Justice, and I use she and her pronouns.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nicole. Nicole, I'm actually going to go ahead and start with you. For those that are brand new to understanding this concept of civic engagement, help us break that down. What is civic engagement? What does it look like? How do we know that we're active in that or not?
Sure. So civic engagement is the participation of any individual in a decision-making spaces. And the way how individuals participate in decision-making spaces takes different forms. In a representative democracy, which is the one that we have here in the United States, the way how individuals participate in decision-making spaces is through representatives. So we choose people who is going to represent us in decision-making spaces. And something that is important to consider is that relationship between the voter and the person who is in decision-making spaces. Because it's because of you that a person is there making decisions that is going to affect you and the community.
Absolutely. That's a great reminder to folks that we are a republic. So we have a voting process where we elect someone to speak on our behalf. And so when they're not doing that, we have a right to hold them accountable, which is important for us to remember. Yolanda, what else do you consider civic engagement?
Oh, I love this question. Civic engagement is really every way that we engage with other human beings. This expanded definition is so important. It includes meeting your neighbors. It includes participating in your child's school, maybe your PTA. It includes, getting involved with your neighborhood organization. And of course, everything that has to do with voting is there as well. But as human beings, we are the base of democracy. We are what makes it work. We are the reason it exists. And only a person who has the space and time and energy and resources can really commit to being part of this expanded version of civic engagement. It's the reason that every election that takes place should really just be about basic, meeting our basic needs. And our basic needs are everything that we need to thrive. So we can't stop at, clean water and air and housing. We need to be thinking about everything else. We need to be thinking about agency, respect. We need to be thinking about, the ability to take care of ourselves when we're working and we need time off. We need to be thinking about everything a human being needs to thrive so they can meaningfully participate in our democracy, so they can meaningfully be part of civic engagement.
I know that is right, Yolanda. Let them know. Let them know, let the people know that when we go out, it should be about the things that we need for all of us to not only survive, I love that you said that, but also to thrive. Thank you. Dr. Akbar, any additions?
Yeah, so when I think about civic engagement, I think about, if you've heard any like the workforce conversations over the last couple of years, beyond all the quiet quitting and all the nonsense, there's the work, the engagement in the workplace, right? It's not just a matter of like you show up and you clock in, you clock out. It's a matter of what you do while you're there, right? And work engagement is a whole other beast, and that's some of that is earned, but civic engagement is about the agreement you made to live in a civilization, in a society. So what do we do besides just kind of go to work, come back, pay taxes, vote, right? It's doing the extra work. It means hitting up your local representatives, hitting up your council members, engaging with the material. So even if social interactions are not your thing, you can C-SPAN is boring, but also the C-SPAN and the public works and like public record materials are usually freely available and online. And if they're not, you can be the person who sends in the email and asks for it to be because it's supposed to be, right? Engagement can really mean we all have different callings, but finding ways to engage that match with what actually works and resonates with you and the way you walk through the world are going to be the ways to engage in ways that are sustainable for you.
Yes, thank you for that. That was such a brilliant reminder that the work should look like us and look like the way that we desire to move through the world, reflecting our values in action. To that point, I know that there are going to be people that are watching this, that are listening, that are thinking about the reality of being in a republic, and that feels like you get people elected, you get them in office, and they kind of do their own thing. So does it matter if I go out and march and protest? Does it matter if I organize? Does it matter for some folks, even if I vote, knowing that once they get in that seat, they may or may not care about my needs? I'd love to hear from each of you about examples of it making a difference, like really concrete examples that you have worked on campaigns, got folks involved, from the abundant opportunities that you all offered up in your definitions of really highlighting why this matters. And Dr. Akbar, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Okay, so I'm fairly new to my current position, but I've realized so I started Urban League this past August, but before then I realized I've kind of been doing a lot of this work around everything going back. So I did a PhD program in psychology. While I was in that program, as you might, despite common belief, psychologists are not necessarily the most progressive bunch, and academics tend to take a while to decide on doing anything and are very good at making committees that decide to do nothing. So going into a program as a Black man in a program that had never graduated a Black man, and realizing, as a lot of things were not quite in the right shape for myself, and then especially for the students who are coming in after me. And so a lot of my work to engage with the community that I was a part of was actually showing up at these meetings and calling things to attention respectfully, but while still while not standing firm in the reality that, hey, this is not okay, right? This isn't we have needs here. These needs are not being listened to. And they're basic things. Some of them are things that were completely work related, like, hey, we want statistics training and y'all keep saying we need this training, but you block our efforts to provide for it. And you're not necessarily listening to us when it actually turns to comes to making sure that we have some baseline standard for how we act, right? So that's meant meeting and getting in coalition with the other students, right? Figuring out where we all kind of agree on different topics, where we have some of these differences, and figuring out how to make not even split the difference, but figure out where our core alignments were so we could bring those to actually get something done. And it took a while, and it wasn't perfect, but things got better a little, things got at least a little bit better, to the point that talking with newer students now as an alum, it's been wild to hear that while some folks have not changed, a lot of the experiences they're going through do look fundamentally different than folks in my cohort and folks are coming up behind me.
That's really powerful testimony, just about the reality of, even with a small group of folks, the impact that you can have within an institution. So thank you for sharing that personal story. Yolanda.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great story. I'm going to talk about earned sick and safe time. For people who don't know, individuals who have part-time jobs and don't get offered the time off that they need without losing pay when they are ill, or when they need time to go to court or take care of themselves in perhaps a domestic situation, anything that can happen in your life like that. Earned sick and safe time would give you paid time off to take care of yourself. So earned sick and safe time is incredibly important. We anchor the earned sick and safe time at the state level, along with SEIU. And in Bloomington last year, they passed earned sick and safe time, and organizing these low-wage workers to go in and speak for themselves and testify as to what their experience has been during the pandemic and even before the pandemic, how they were working sick and they were unable to take time off without thinking, am I going to be able to pay my rent? How am I going to pay for childcare if I take this time off? I had the pleasure of hearing Miss Ava Lopez testify in front of the Bloomington City Council and speak to the fact that as a member of SEIU and as a retail store cleaner in Bloomington, that many of her fellow union members, more than 1,000 of them, tested positive for COVID, and still were expected to go into work as essential workers. And they are showing up to work very, very ill. They have no way of taking time off and still being able to pay rent and to pay for the things that they and their families need. And she spoke so bravely and clearly about how if earned sick and safe time had been available, it could have saved the lives of the members who from Local 26 of SEIU that passed away from COVID, trying to keep this state running. It's testimony like this that helped pass Earn Sick and Save Time in Bloomington, and it's so important that when you have a story to tell, that you understand the power in that story, the power in that pain, and how many hundreds of thousands of people are affected by the lack of Earn Sick and Save Time in the state of Minnesota. These are things that we need to just stand up and be brave and tell our stories.
That was such a powerful share, Yolanda. And I can only imagine how incredible it was to be in those hearings, to hear those stories live from people. And I really appreciate the reminder to all of us. I think that we have a habit as a society of really going inside when we are feeling down or feeling like we're struggling alone. And that story really highlights the power of pulling out and being willing to share with others what we're going through and hearing what they're going through and using that as the organizing tool to gather and galvanize to make change. So really, really appreciate that. Nicole, love to hear from you on campaigns that you have worked on and ways that you've seen civic engagement really matter, have a deep impact on folks.
Absolutely. So the same as Alvin, I'm new at Voices, but I could talk a little bit about an effort that Voices have done in the past. And Voices for Racial Justice was involved in Minnesota Democracy Partnership, and the focus, it was about census. So explaining to people why census is important and how always in census, there's an intention to always not count the communities of color. There's always a historical communities of color has been undercounted. And that's important because census is based for a lot of data that is used for funding. So the federal funding use census data to give funding to our state. So Voices for Racial Justice really good work with around more organizations to sit down and see how we make that communities of color are counted in the census. So it was really grassroots and connecting to Native reservations and asking how we can make the you are counted in the census. So some of the demographers needed to go to the reservations that are far away because the state needs to meet them at their realities and is not waiting for the communities to come and be counted. It's the duty of the state to count them and meet them where they are. So that was an effort that we did in 2020. And then the number shows that BIPOC communities are increasing and that we're counted, but there's still a lot to do. And it's something that is powerful, but again, I want to mention that census is very important because it shows the number of our communities growing. And that's something that I could talk a little bit.
Yeah, actually would love to hear a little bit more from you on that and how folks might be able to get involved in that work.
Yeah, I think something really important that we experienced, especially with the immigrant community, is that back then there was rumors that participating in census, the information was going to be shared with ICE or immigration detention centers. We explained to them and informed them that that data is protected and not any other immigrations or ICE could access, or even the police could access to that information. Of course, it's information that is not given to everyone, right? The state has information that is kept to themselves, and the information it's written in a language that is not accessible or even not translated in the language that our communities speak. So of course, I'm going to be afraid to engage when I don't know the entire information that is given. So what we did is try to make that information accessible to our communities, translate them in Spanish, disclaim the security measures that the census data contains, and also bring in people such as the demographers, the state demographers, talking to them, so that person could actually tell them by voice that that data is protected.
That's great. That's really powerful. And I look forward to seeing the ways that work manifests in our census and data tracking, because it's essential. And we're always, to your point, finding ways to diminish the numbers of communities of color across the country and locally as well. So now that leaves us with the question for, again, you know, the purpose of this is for folks that are really new to conversations around civic engagement. And now that we've got them curious and excited about the different pathways their action could take, where would you all advise them to start? I'd love for you to share a little bit about where you may have started in your journeys. I think that that's always helpful for folks to see themselves reflected. Who are some of the people that you've learned from that you would recommend people picking up and reading? How can folks get involved? And I'm gonna kick it to Dr. Akbar. Oh, I'm sorry, Yolanda, I think this one is, we're gonna hit you first for this one. Apologies. I try to go in a nice shared order here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, that is a really great question. I would say that my politicization started as I was working. I'm from Milwaukee, so I was working in Milwaukee, and my position was a union position. So I would say the union really politicized me and introduced me to organizing and really speaking truth to power. That would be where I really first got involved. If people are looking to be more engaged, I do recommend standing where you are. If you happen to be a union member, definitely go to your union and talk to them about what candidates they're supporting, what social justice movements they're involved with. And get involved with them. It's so powerful to be part of a union and to stand with other working people for your values. Additionally, I do work with a lot of organizations as the strategic partnership director at Take Action Minnesota. So I know that many of our partners are doing really great work. Center for Victims of Torture now has a presence in Minnesota because of the police situation that we've had here, which is both a wonderful and terrifying thought. That they are starting classes now, sessions to teach people how to start lobbying and how to go and talk to their politicians and how, to put together, an agenda of policies that you want to move. So if you're brand new, that is a great place to start. And they're really interested. So I recommend that you contact Center for Victims of Torture. We Choose Us is another partner that we work with, and they're working along with other groups like Minnesota Justice Research Center to restore the vote. If that's something that your values lean to, these are organizations you want to get in contact with. If you are concerned about access to abortion, I definitely recommend that you contact Unrestrict. They're having a lobby day on February 21st, so go ahead and show up at the Capitol and talk to your legislator about how important it is that we have access to abortion in the island state of Minnesota right now. And definitely Take Action Minnesota is really interested in making sure that you can connect through us as well. So, you can definitely text, just need a quick second on this one. You can definitely text action, the word action, to 87843. And we will give you updates on the work that we're doing and help you get involved as well.
Brilliant. I know we got those listed in the chat, so hopefully folks will follow up. Thank you for that. Nicole, go ahead. I see you unmuted, so I'm going to pass it to you.
So I'm from Colombia, so I'm an immigrant, as many of our communities. And I understand the language barriers and educational barriers to adapt to another country and really understand how policies affect me. So when I arrived here, some issue that really got me really passionate about was immigration issues. So I recommend everyone to think about an issue that you're passionate about, whether it's climate change, whether it's abortion rights, whether it's democracy or immigration issues like myself. And then really research and understand how to get involved to those people that are making the decisions about immigration, for example. A web page that it will help you to understand are your representatives is the legislator website, but the way how easy to access is you type in Google who represents me and Minnesota, and then it will open a website that it has a map, and then you type your address and it sends you who are your representatives. And those people need to listen to you, again, because they are representing you. And then they need your opinion. And if you have the solution, just tell them what do you think is the solution of that matter. Something that I think it's important to think about is who has the privilege to do this research and really sit down and understand who represents you, because our communities of colors, they don't have time to read how the legislator works, what are the committees, all that. Our communities of color are busy surviving. So I think what great organizations are doing is trying to understand how a system works and put it in a language that is accessible and meet the realities of our people. Voices for Racial Justice, for example, we are developing a racial equity impact assessment tool. This is a policy tool that we want people to use by answering 5 questions in any policy decision-making process that it centers the BIPOC community. And we want to teach people how to ask those 5 questions to all the people in power. And you can have access to the Racial Equity Impact Assessment Pocket Guide in our website. But stay tuned, because we are developing this year a toolkit with examples, templates, how to use those questions. So really center the BIPOC communities in the process. Questions like, who is the most impacted by the decision that you're making? Decisions like, what are the negative impacts that this decision is going to affect the BIPOC communities? So I really encourage everyone to look at our website. And if you are interested in participating, please contact me. I will send you my email.
That's awesome, Nicole. I am so grateful that you all are putting that toolkit together, and I know our audience is grateful as well. And so what we can do is share. We can also share it to the folks that are in attendance in this panel today. Dr. Akbar, where did you start? How did you get your start? And where do you recommend folks get their start?
So I kind of started where I was, right? So a lot of college is a great time to learn how to like get involved and get active. So I started with my university, but as I was getting more involved in like broader discussions, and especially like studying like psychology of race, just understanding what racial politics in the US have looked like and how a lot of racist policies have been implemented. So y'all might hear a word that you've heard as a dirty word, and I'm here to tell you it's really not. Critical race theory. It's a legal framework to understand how policies codify, systematic like racism, and it's so like, I think more than anything, a lot of this oppression is so mundane, and that's how it becomes entrenched. Right? It's not that someone does something so awful that, oh my gosh, that's so horrible and shocking, and I'm going to look the other way. It's that it comes in through zoning restrictions and guidelines, through covenant charters that people decide, well, we don't do that anymore. We don't enforce it, so we don't need to take it off the books, right? As we've seen, a lot of established law does not stay established. So understanding how people have utilized our laws, our systems, policies, and precedents to enact structural violence and oppression is one of the things that really kind of got me going. A little less academic, but really, so Michael Harriot, and when he was working at the Root and posting his educational Twitter threads about just histories of racial and like racial riots in the US, especially, like that really caught my attention from the get-go, because it's just a lot of history is buried, right? We know there's a lot of things out here we're seeing actively that folks are fighting to control, not necessarily the people directly, but the flow of information about things that are should be public information and they're not. And so just really understanding, like, how did we get here, and also what's been happening that we've been ignoring or shoving under the rug, or that people have been actively suppressing, since especially now we live in the age of information. We're all likely facing a deluge at all times, right? We're trying to get a cup of water from the fire hydrant as it's spraying out. So really kind of picking your, like, not even picking your battles, but picking your first step. What's the next thing you're going to learn about? Learn about where you are. Learn about how it got to where it is, and learn about what kinds of policies and decision plans were made. I love this. So my therapist first got me this book a while ago. It's called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown. A really lovely book, kind of emphasizing how the small is good, right? Small victories, small battles are the battles that we actually, like, that's the stuff we live in every single day, right? Start on your block, start in your neighborhood, start in your family, figure out like what's directly important to you that you can make a tangible impact on, and then open your mind to the fact that the impact you made might be larger than you thought it could be.
I really appreciate that. Very tangible directives for folks to get started. I would also just add that neighborhood organizations are another good place to just understand what is going on in your community. It's a great place to start to meet folks that are also thinking about, how do I actively engage? How do I connect? And just starting to learn about those local issues that are impacting you directly. So really appreciate all of that. And then I'll just add that, here at Urban Homeworks, those of you that are joining us as residents, a great place to get involved is within our pod meetings, our people-oriented development meetings that we gather once a month with our equity and engagement team. The purpose of those is for you all to connect and talk about what is happening in your neighborhoods, in the community, and what you all want to do about it. And this work, these panels are a continuation of that. And then our policy forums are the place where we bring our residents right before electives to say, this is what we want, and we are ready to hold you accountable. So please connect. I think that this next question is a really important question. Like, as people are moving into policy, thinking about local policy, statewide policy, national policy, help us understand the differences in those types of engagement. What are the differences, and how might you approach each differently? And Dr. Akbar, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Yeah. So I'm a big old nerd, so I love thinking about it in terms of like the D&D like classes and occupations. Like, some people find themselves called to action to march in the streets, right? They might be more like out there in the streets fighting, putting their bodies in the line. Some folks are going to be more information workers, right? They're not like, don't ask them to give a speech, but they will absolutely dig up information, intel, useful bits, and sort through that quickly. Some folks are going to be more about the interpersonal, interrelated caring for each other. Our social justice clerics, right? They're there to make sure that like folks have what they need, that folks are supported, and like kind of really checking on their community and like to make sure, hey, are you okay? Do you need to take some time to sit out, take a moment, right? Or even coming ready with food, supplies, and the like, right? Some folks are going to be up there making those speeches, being impassioned and speaking their hearts, because it's a calling that really comes naturally to them, right? A lot of there's all kinds of different ways that you can get there. Some folks are really good at just organizing people and getting folks together, but figuring out where your strengths lie. And if you're not entirely sure, talk to some people close to you about what you're good at, because they'll probably be able to tell you real quick. But there are lots of different ways to get active, more than just marching in the streets, especially if there's situations where that's not going to work for you. Maybe you have a livelihood that if you get arrested for marching in the streets, you suddenly don't have a job and now you can't help yourself or other people, right? There's different ways to be involved, and also sometimes there's benefits to folks, like having folks who are both in the streets and in the courtrooms is a good way to make sure that things don't fall by the wayside.
Absolutely, absolutely. So building pipelines, building a wraparound. Yes, exactly. And just getting in all the spaces, even the uncomfortable ones. Nicole, how are you thinking about that difference of state level engagement versus community engagement and things like that?
I feel to answer this question, we need to understand everyone needs to analyze what is the level of commitment that everyone wants. As I said, some of us, we have the time, we work in these spaces, we have the time to research, we have the time to talk and find organizations that share the missions and the vision of you in an issue, so you can really involve with them or lead in a new issue. You can become an organizer, and there's organizations that teach you how to organize. So you can organizing, you can come to us, or there's other organizations that provide the tools for you. But if you are a BIPOC person, you don't have the time to organize because you need to survive. One of the things that you could do is engage in the elections. But I want to bring these racial equity lenses to elections. Not everyone can access to elections polls and can actually understand how to engage on the system, like registering, because information is not translated in that language. And also, how you're going to engage with the people in those decision-making spaces. You don't speak the language, you don't know how, you don't have internet access or computer. So I feel all those things you need to keep in mind if you consider when a people can or cannot engage in different political efforts. So when it comes to, when, for example, I invite people to, okay, if you don't have time, but you care about an issue, vote, but like engage with knowledge, right? With passion, with love, because there's so many people that are part of our community that pay taxes, that drives our bosses, that they take care of our kids, but they cannot engage in the elections, which is the simple way to engage with people's own power, right? And I'm thinking about there's two-part ways of how to engage in the elections to be civic engaged. One is be eligible to vote, and the other one is how people can actually access to the voting polls and vote. When I talk about eligibility, right? Okay, let's bring those racial equity lenses. Who is eligible to vote, right? Out of the bat, all the immigrant communities cannot vote. Incarcerated, all the people that are in probations or incarcerated, they cannot vote. So just really bringing those racial equity lenses and being who are the people that are most likely to be in situations that are incarcerated or in probation. So I think it's about that. It's bringing those, what are the issues or things that prevent people to engage, but because we are part of that society, we should engage with them. But also speaks about how the decision makers, the people that are in power, the legislators, needs to adapt to our realities. Because again, it's because of us that they are there.
Those are excellent points. And I will say that I was at the Capitol today, and I know that there is a vote happening on opening up the vote to our incarcerated neighbors. And so I look forward to hearing how that goes. But I know that folks are fighting and organizing around that. So,
Yep. And I just want to chime in.
Go ahead.
In addition to voting, like, get informed about who you're voting for, right? I know, like, if you walk into, like, if you haven't actually gotten to do any digging up of info when you walk into a poll, you're just seeing a list of names and some very dense legalese, like policy language that is literally designed to confuse and also be hyper specific in areas that don't actually help with clarity for like a layperson. So utilize some of the voter guides that are out there, right? I want to shout out Take Action's voter guides because they are super helpful. It's literally the Busy Voters Guide. I'm going to just paste that in the chat for reasons. But also Vote 411, League of Women Voters, right? A lot of organizations do take time because we know it's confusing and we know that it's by design. So if before you go to vote, right, take 20 minutes if you can, pull it up on your phone, print it out, do whatever, but just try to parse some of that down. You can take handwritten or printed notes in with you to the booth. They won't let you have your phone out, but they will let you take in anything that you hand wrote or that you got printed out for you. So you can have a list of all the people who are like, oh, I'm voting for this person, this person, this person, and this policy means this, so I'm going to vote this way on it, right? You can do that work in advance and even look at it while you're waiting in line if you have to vote on the day. But voting early is usually going to be a lot easier on everyone involved. So
I really appreciate all of that, Dr. Akbar. Those are such helpful reminders, and the emphasis on educating ourselves before we walk into those booths cannot be emphasized enough. I will say that I'm one of those people that likes to take notes into the booth with me because there's a lot going on and I want to make sure I don't forget something or, that moment of panic of like, I have a short amount of time, I gotta vote quickly and go. It's really helpful to really have a plan because it's important to get that stuff right. Yolanda, I know you will have a lot on this piece, so help us to break it down, Yolanda.
Absolutely. On the local level, I'm so glad that you brought up neighborhood organizations and how important they are and how much power they have, even when they're not necessarily utilizing it. There's a lot of power that neighborhood organizations have to bring in panels that are, not for Democrats or for Republicans. They're bipartisan, and you can hear from your candidates. And I really want to encourage more neighborhood organizations to get involved in that and bring, the candidates to your organization so that your neighbors can come in and hear what they have to say. That's incredibly important. The municipal elections in St. Paul and in Minneapolis really provide a great opportunity to meet someone local who is interested in running for office and interested in representing you, and really express to them what your values are and what you are looking for in a candidate to represent you, and go down and once you've voted for them, whomever gets into office, you hold them accountable. Go see them in their office, talk to them. If you're happy with what they're doing, support them. Make sure they feel the love once they get into office and they're doing what you want them to do. Additionally, if they're not doing what you want them to do, it's also very important that they hear from you, that you send them an email, that you stop into their office when they have visiting hours. And if you can go to, a hearing down, down at the courthouse and just, let people know how you're feeling. I know that it can be intimidating, but it's so very important. Take Action is really interested in making sure that you can connect on the issues that are important to you. In that vein, I'm going to go ahead and put a survey into the chat so that you can let us know, what's important to you and how you feel. We'll have an organizer reach out to you and talk to you one-to-one about, how you might want to get active, how you might want to start learning about organizing. It's so important that we have guides and we have mentors and people that are there to help us. You don't have to do this alone. You don't have to try to figure this out by yourself. At the state level, if you're going and you know that right now, so many laws, policies that didn't have a chance for years now have a chance at the Capitol. There's a chance for them to pass. There's hearing after hearing after hearing going on at the Capitol, offering so many opportunities for you to decide what's important to you, what do you value, and then tell your story. That one of the best things that organizers do is teach people the power in their story and how to tell it in a way that is engaging. So again, you don't have to do this by yourself. We're here to help you. There are, countless organizations that would love to see you, love to talk to you. So I definitely want to just make sure that people are aware of that survey and they take the opportunity to fill that out if they have time. There is also some canvassing happening on Wednesday nights at Take Action every Wednesday. We're doing some deep canvassing, so getting on the phone, having some conversations. Right now, we're talking about earned sick and safe time, but there's countless other issues that we've discussed via deep canvassing over the phone. When it gets a little warmer, we'll be doing it on the doors. So I want to go ahead and place that also. If you're interested in having some great phone conversations, please join us on Wednesday nights.
That was perfect. Like, way to really break down for folks how they can get involved. So much going on at Take Action. Really hope that folks that have joined us today will follow up on the links that Yolanda put in the chat. And Yolanda, you got my next question. You've already kicked it off, which are the big campaigns that you're working on right now that you want folks to know about. I'll give you a chance, so if there's anything that you want to add to what you've already said specifically on campaigns, or if we want to pass it to someone else.
Yeah, sure. There's a little bit more, definitely.
Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so aside from earned sick and safe time, there's paid family medical leave. We're also working on that. There's a plethora of bills that the 100% campaign is putting out there to get Minnesota to 100% clean energy by 2040. So we're definitely very engaged in that, and we'll be getting more engaged in climate and environmental issues as the year goes on. So definitely contact us if you're at all interested. We only have one planet, right? The care campaigns that we're working on include making healthcare affordable by expanding Minnesota Care and taking on big pharma. That the price of pharmaceutical drugs is killing people. It is making it so that individuals cannot afford to stay alive. That is something we're working on as well. And it's just so important that we engage on these types of campaigns that are, for individuals who are trying to care for themselves and for their loved ones. Right now, our organizers are super interested in meeting with people who are caregivers either by profession or by necessity. So if you are taking care of, maybe your parents, maybe another sick loved one, if you work for a living, perhaps you do home health care or something like that, we definitely want to talk to you. And I encourage you to fill out that survey and let us know about the work that you're doing. Someone will definitely reach out to you, sit down with you, and listen to your story.
That's great. Thank you so much, Yolanda. Dr. Akibar, what are your thoughts on this? What are campaigns that you're excited about right now that you're working on that you want folks to get involved with?
Yeah. So right now, CSJ is definitely kind of in the ideating and envisioning phase of kind of figuring out what we want our longer term trajectory to be. But in the meantime, because things keep moving, we've been working on a few initiatives right now. So working on educating folks about our relationship with policing in Minnesota and about the consent decree process, especially given that if we're not able to hold folks accountable locally or at the state level, what could this look like if we went for a state or national consent decree to make sure that at least some baseline standard is being met or at least measured and observed, right? We recently put out the State of Black Minnesota report and following up with the United Black Legislative Agenda, just looking at different issues of the ways that discrimination has been codified against Black people and the lasting impacts that's had in terms of housing stability, wealth development, right, or wealth inequity, especially and just the different ways that targeted harassment and targeted harassment and discrimination tend to hit Black people often even more negatively, regardless of what other intersections of identity that we're talking about, whether it's disability, LGBTQ identity, right? We're still seeing that a lot of Black people tend to be the first on the line. So really pushing the state, pushing for the state to make sure that we're actually tackling these issues well, right? We've also been working and are still working with folks and especially city of Minneapolis government, following the encampment evictions for a lot of for folks who are unhoused, right? We've seen that like clockwork, as we face some really bad days to be alone outside, we're seeing encampments being evicted rather than being de-encamped, rather than providing stable housing for folks who really desire it. So working with some friendly folks on city council and with some folks who are less than friendly but open to talking to try to understand what we can actually do to change this so that we're not doing this same thing again next year, right? So talking with folks in the health, like the Department of Health, and trying to understand what the impacts of the status quo has been so that we can make a stronger case for changing that to do something better. It tends to cost less to house people than to treat them like second-class citizens. So how do we finally make the case to and educate the public so that we can actually move that forward? Because it's really, Minnesota is one of the most prosperous states in the country, top 10 by most accounts. But then we start looking at the ways that the inequality in Minnesota is in the bottom 5 of the country.
Yes, thank you. No, thank you, Dr. Akibar. Thank you for that reminder. And really grateful to you for the work you all are doing on just how we work with folks in encampments. That's really important. And I know that we're all really tired of seeing people that are so vulnerable be so violenced and disrespected. And so appreciate the reminder to those that need it, that it is more cost effective. It is literally cheaper to house people, let alone more humane. That part, I hope everyone in this room is already aware of, but it is also more cost effective. Nicole, what are the things that you're excited about right now, the campaigns you want folks to know about?
Well, I got excited about everything that I was shared. But yes, so Voices for Racial Justice, where we have the intention to build tools that will help leaders, organizers, or people to approach and communicate with decision maker, people that are deciding policies at any level. We are developing this racial equity impact assessment that you can find in our website. And you can use these 5 questions to ask to your school boards, your park boards, even in your office, how the decisions are being made. But of course, we want organizers and communities to go at the legislator and ask these 5 questions to the legislative people. The 5 questions that are the first one, which is who is the most impacted? So really analyzing who is the people most impacted by a decision. The second is, why is the disparity being addressed? What is the disparity? Because we know any decision has impact in communities of color in a different way, right? How will the proposed policy change the situation? What is the current disparities and how that will either exacerbate the disparities or really have a positive impact? Are there any potential negative impacts for BIPOC communities? And really think about the impacts about health, salary, the environmental impact to them. Can the policy be sustainable, successful? If a policy is going to be made, we need to think about allocating the funding for that policy to sustain. And we're really intentional to center the BIPOC communities in any decision-making arena, because this is how policy should be made. Having the people of color included in all our policies in all different levels. So stay tuned, because Voices for Racial Justice is doing a toolkit on these 5 questions to teach you and support you in the process how to engage with people of power. Yep.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nicole. really appreciate those answers from all of you. I hope the folks that have joined us are really excited. There's a lot to get involved with. As Yolanda stated, there's prime opportunity right now for us to get a lot done with this Democratic trifecta. And so really hoping that folks get excited just about that in and of itself. And I'll just share that here at Urban Homeworks, we're really excited about Bring It Home Minnesota, which is legislation that supports folks making less than 50% of the area median income to have their housing funded so that they're not paying more than 30% of their income on housing, which we know would make them cost burdened. So really trying to get folks involved. If you are interested in joining that campaign, please reach out to our equity and engagement team. And I know the crew at Urban Homeworks can put that communication in the chat. I'm trying to speak quickly because we are at 29. I just want to thank this group, Nicole, Dr. Akbar, Yolanda, for being with us today. This was a fantastic conversation. To be honest, I hope we can maybe even do it again for a round 2 of civic engagement because you all are absolutely incredible. And I know that folks will learn so much from you. So thank you all for being here. And again, those who have joined us, I know you all also have busy days. It's potentially your lunch hour, but we're so grateful to have you walking alongside of us and making change in our state and in our communities. So thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care, y'all.